Long ago in the Highlands of Scotland, out in the woods, there lived a lass. A woman that was certainly not a child, but not an old maid either. The people in town, well, they would always talk about her out there. They called her the lass who feared nothing. Now, her given name, of course, was Margaret, but she went by Maggie most places. And people from town would always be coming out and asking her, well, why don't you come move to town with the rest of us? I mean, it must be scary living here in the woods. The girl just smiled and said, no, this is where I grew up and this is where I'll stay. But well, what are the wild animals? Well, I have a dog and a cat to protect me from those. And besides, I've got a strong right arm. And my mom, she taught me how to take care of myself before she passed. And my dad, well, he taught me how to hunt before he wandered off wherever he went. People shrugged their shoulders. What about the wee folk, they said, talking about the fairies. Of course, they lowered their voices and looked left and right and up and down and all around to make sure the fairies weren't listening. That's how much they were afraid of the little folk. The lass just smiled and said, ha! Fairies. Those are just good wives' tales. They're not really around anyway, and if they were, well, I'm sure I'd figure out how to take care of them. The townspeople just shrugged their shoulders. But as time went by and the lass grew, the young men of the village began noticing she was fair to look on. And pretty soon she would have a line of 10 young men with flowers and silly smiles on their faces, ready to knock on her door. When she looked out the window and saw that line, she opened the door and said, ah, be gone with you. I don't think I have a mind to marry right now anyway. Besides, what could you give me that I can't do all by myself right now? And she sent them away. Well, a few days later, it just so happened that as she went to get some oatmeal to make cakes, she noticed she was run out. And so she grabbed a bag full of oats and took it to the mill. But the mill was a long ways off, and it was dark by the time she got there. She knocked on the miller's door, because she could see light inside the miller's house. The miller opened the door just a crack and peeked out. I'm sorry, sir, to make noise so late at night, but I'm out of oatmeal. Could I please just bring this bag in? Could you grind it for me tonight? I see the wind's still blowing for the windmill. And the miller said, no, can't do it. Go away. No, sir, please. I need to have oatmeal for my porridge in the morning. Well, I can't do it right now. Be gone. But she stuck her foot in the small space left when the man opened the door. Could you at least tell me why you won't do it? She said. Knowing being direct often helped when dealing with people. Well, because... And he lowered his voice. To tell you the truth, there's a goblin that lives under my mill, and if anyone tries to grind anything after dark, the goblin pops out of the floor, grabs all that you're trying to grind, and then beats you up for all your trouble. Oh, a goblin. I'm not afraid of those. I've dealt with them before. The man's eyes got really wide. Really? Now give me the key and I'll take care of it myself. No. It's way too dangerous, especially for a what? She said, narrowing her eyes. Okay, I'll get the key. And the miller, he went and got the key and brought his wife and children as witnesses to show that he was not responsible for what might happen to this young woman when she goes into the mill and tries to grind her oats at night. She said thanks, and he closed the door and bolted it shut and bolted all the windows. She went down to the mill and opened it up, lit some candles, and took her bag of oats and poured it into the hopper and started the mill wheels grinding around. As the ground oats fell into a bag, suddenly, pop! Up out of the ground popped a goblin. His green skin glimmered in the candlelight. His long fingers with sharp claws reached out toward the girl. "Well, my pretty, I see you're here now. It's time for some fun." He picked up a big club and tried to, with the other hand, grab the bag of oatmeal. But Maggie, she wasn't one to give up oatmeal or to run away from a goblin. She stepped back, tripped the goblin, and plunk, he fell over. Dropped his club. She picked up the club and began beating him around his head, on his ears, on his back, chased him into a corner, chased him into another corner, ran him all the way around, until he came running across the middle of the room and he fell, plunk, right into the hopper. And he fell between those two grindstones and began grinding and grinding, and she could see him in there. And began screaming, "Ah, let me out, let me out, let me out!" Of course, being ground between two great stones is not enough to kill a goblin. Almost nothing can kill a goblin. But that doesn't mean nothing can hurt them. Now those howls and screams were so loud that the miller and his wife and children just put their blankets over their heads and plugged their ears and hoped it would stop. But Maggie, she just sat there, letting the wheels grind away till just about dawn. "Please, please, please, if you let me out of the grinding wheels, I promise never to come back here again. And besides, I'll tell you where there's a bag of gold hidden too. Please." "You'll never return again, eh?" she said, making sure she understood. Yes, I promise, please, just let me out." And she stopped the grinding wheels and pushed them apart enough that the goblin could wiggle himself out and run off into the dawn. And they say that goblin was never seen again. They also say that he did tell Maggie before he left about a bag of gold she could find buried in the forest. No one knows what she ever did with that gold, but every once in a while, when everyone was down and out in that village, when anyone had a problem to deal with, they'd find a gold coin slid under their door. I don't know if that's where the gold came from, but Maggie was well known, far and wide, as the lass who feared nothing. And that's the end of the story.